Calling out the patriarchy doesn't mean you hate men. Welcome to Change the Conversation with the Hopefulist. My name is Wendy McClure, and it's time we had a conversation about living in a patriarchy and how that affects our lives. Together, we can make a difference and change the conversation. Thank you so much for being here. I so appreciate you wanting to change the conversation, wanting to be the difference, to step in and help make things better for women everywhere, mostly in this country, obviously, but make things better for ourselves, for our daughters, for our granddaughters, and all of those generations that are to come after us, because we are at a point in time where many people are trying to make us go backwards. And this is because women have come so far in so little time. And I think it was very unexpected that women would be able to achieve so much in just the past 50 years. And it's really frightening to men. It's really frightening to those who like the patriarchal system that we've been living in for the last couple of centuries. And it's a threat to men and the way that they have had the way of life, their way of life. And just because we talk about patriarchy doesn't mean that we hate men. It means that we hate the system. And even though a patriarchal system does benefit men, much more so than it benefits women, it's still very, very damaging to men as a whole. Because men are also forced to live in a role that is created by them, created for them by society. And if you are not living in that role, then you are made to feel other, wrong, outcast, what have you. But, Generation X is really the first generation to start putting off marriage. We were the ones who went to college with the object being to actually work. Women went to college before our generations, and a lot of times it was to just find a husband in college, find somebody who was going to make a good living and be an upstanding citizen and kind of tie yourself to that person and make a family with them. So our generation were the first ones to actually go to college with the intent to graduate in a field of interest to us so that we would pursue a job that would be a career, and we put off marriage and having kids. We were the first generation to really take our time when it came to choosing a partner. We dated a lot longer than relationships in the past. I didn't necessarily think that was a good thing, but you take the good with the bad with the good. But yeah, we took our time, and our mothers encouraged us to not depend on a man. My mom got a lot of things wrong when it came to raising me, but that was one thing that she got right. She constantly encouraged me to never depend on a man. And when she means depend, she meant financially, for my own survival, to always be independent and to make sure that I had choices. And I think that we as Gen Xers were really the first generation that were encouraged to do that. So when we did start to get married and we started to have children, we were working outside the home. And we realized that much of the home activities fell on us, regardless of the fact that we worked outside the home like men did. We were the ones to insist, men, you need to step up. You need to help us more. We are drowning. We are overwhelmed. We can't do it all. We need help, and you have to help us. So we were the first ones to point out that, yeah, this is too much. You can't expect us to work 40 plus hours outside the home, then come home, make dinner every night, clean up, do the laundry, do the cleaning of the house, take care of everything that has to do with the kids, and expect us to be sane. I mean, it's crazy. You know, the generation before us, the baby boomers in the 70s, you know, they had the first feminism, and they really made it so that women have the choices that they have now. It is thanks to the baby boomers and the generation before them, the silent generation, that fought for women to have the right to open up a bank account, to buy property, to get a credit card. And many, many years ago, we had women fight for us to have the right to vote. You know, without these things, we wouldn't be anywhere near the position that we're in now. So now we find ourselves in a place where we've done a lot of the emotional work to determine what it is we truly want in life. And we're the first ones to really speak out about the fact that you're expecting too much from us. You know, we decided that we wanted to start working outside the home because that was the only work that was actually paid. We wanted to earn money for ourselves so that we had choices in our life. That if we didn't like the way that our marriage was going, we had the option to leave. Because most of the generations before us did not have that option. They were financially dependent on their husbands. And we are not, for the most part. We were never encouraged growing up to explore our feelings, to think about how we truly wanted our lives to look. We were basically told how our lives were going to go. You're going to go to college. You're going to find a job. You're going to find a husband and have kids. And then that will be your job. You will be a wife and a mother. You can still work, but that is always going to be your number one job. And where does that leave people like me who don't have children? And after doing a little bit of self-reflection, that was never a choice that I made. I never once woke up and said, I will not have children. It just didn't happen. I didn't pursue having children because I didn't get married until I was 41. I was always somebody who I didn't want to have a child on my own. That was the one thing that I knew. I don't want to do it alone. I just didn't want to do it alone. So when I did finally get married, I was open to having children. It was a little, sketchy at that point because I was so much older, whether I wanted to really have a baby at that age, to have a newborn at that age, to have to go through the 20 years of raising a baby. But again, I was open to it. We didn't do anything to prevent it from happening, but yet it just never happened. But I never sat down and said, I am not going to have kids. So where does that leave us? If our job was to get married and have kids, where does it leave people like me? What does that mean for my worth and my value? Now, these are the things that I'm talking about. We were never encouraged to think about these things. We weren't encouraged to have feelings, let alone explore them. We weren't even allowed to have emotions. If you recall when you were a kid, if you were upset about something and you were crying, you were told, stop that crying or I'll give you something to cry about. You remember that, right? So when our generation started having kids, they encouraged them to embrace their emotions because we didn't want our kids to grow up in the same way that we did. And yes, some of us went a little overboard in the opposite direction, but it's still probably better than the alternative. It took me a long time to figure that out, but it's okay for me to explore my feelings. It is not okay for men to explore theirs. And that's one of the harmful things of living in a patriarchy for men. No, men are just as much a victim of the patriarchy as women are. Men are taught to keep all of their emotions inside, except for anger. I talked about this last week. Men are allowed to be angry. That is the only emotion that is socially acceptable for them. There is still all of this conversation about men who cry. Men are always saying women want to have a man that's sensitive. They want a man that's able and free to cry in front of them. But as soon as he does, they lose respect for him. These are some of the conversations that I have heard. I don't think I would lose respect for my husband if I were to see him crying. Now, granted, I have not ever seen my husband cry, but I expect he will someday, and I expect that I will not lose respect for him if he cries. This is, again, men telling us how women feel. When women say something, men tell us that we're wrong. I don't think I'm wrong on this. Men are taught to keep all their emotions inside. They're taught to be tough. They are taught they have to be the protector. In essence, men have been taught in a patriarchal system to provide the 3 Ps. What are the 3 Ps, you ask? Well, I will tell you. 3 Ps: provide, protect, procreate. These are the 3 things that men in a patriarchy are taught that is required of them. Nothing more, nothing less. Provide, protect, and procreate. So what does that mean? That means you need a job. You need a way to financially support the family that you want to create that will need to be protected by you. And hence the procreate, the family. Once you get married, you create a family. These are your jobs. Provide, protect, procreate. Women have much more expected of them than those 3 things. They have so much put on them, especially now that we do work outside the home. And we are the ones that said it's too much. Because not only could we not keep up, but then we were shamed for not keeping up. And now we're starting to realize it's not our fault. That nobody can do everything that is expected of women in this society and stay sane. So men were never encouraged to look within and examine how things may be hurting them or holding them back. Women get to an age, they get to a certain point in their life where they start to examine everything. They get to a certain age and they think, this is not how I thought life was going to be. This is not the life that I dreamed of. And they start to question why. And men often just suppress these feelings because they're not encouraged to think about things in an emotional way. So what happens to men when they realize that life is not turning out the way that they expected? Introducing the midlife crisis. This is oftentimes, and it's not just men, but the characteristics of men going through a midlife crisis is often getting into shape, starting to care about how he looks, looking for the attention of other females to make him feel a certain way without actually exploring why he feels the need to have this type of attention. They buy things that make them seem like they're cool and, hot and happening. Hence the sports cars and all of that stuff. They take up new hobbies. They're just doing things that put a Band-Aid on the situation instead of confronting what is really happening inside, again, because they are not taught to look inward, to discover what it is that is really wrong. You might start drinking more to cover any kind of uncomfortable feeling. You know, I know a lot of men in this day and age still refuse to go to therapy. I'm not going to go to therapy. I don't need therapy. We all could benefit from therapy. I've always been a huge proponent of therapy. I think everybody should go to therapy. I think everybody should be forced to examine their life on a weekly basis. And what is wrong with that? It's only going to help you in your life to examine it on a regular basis. Because if you're not in therapy, you're not encouraged to do that. And you just continue to drive on autopilot. And that's what a lot of us are doing. We're living our lives on autopilot because we are too afraid to examine how we feel and why we feel it. And men are the biggest victims of this. You know, they just were not taught to look inward. And this can be very damaging for men. Men have societal standards and expectations just like women do. They're completely different, obviously. But, you know, they get shamed as well. I remember not that long ago, there was a meme floating around of, you know, this is my grandfather. And it was a picture of a man at war. And then, you know, this is going to be you as a grandfather. And it's a picture with an Instagram filter of like puppy dog ears and a nose. Okay, well, that's a very unfair comparison. You know, our grandfathers did grow up in war. They went to war because there was a lot of war. And, you know, to be honest, to be completely fair, they didn't have Instagram filters. So when somebody sees something like that and they have played around with filters and they were just having fun, as kids do, they are now shamed. I've also seen, not so much lately, but for a long time there, I saw these memes that said, you know, I grew up this way, this way, this way. You grew up that way, that way, that way. We are not the same. Another form of shaming. Yes, Gen X really was the last generation to go outside and play all day. One of the reasons why that's different now is because the world is a much different place now. The world is a much more unsafe place now. I don't know anybody who would send their kids out into the neighborhood for the day and not check in on them like we did. We went everywhere when we were kids. We got on our bikes and we just rode all over the place. We rode to places we knew we were not supposed to go to, but it didn't matter because they weren't going to know. They didn't check in on us. Things are different now. We have phones. We have phones that track your location at all times. We have games that you can play in the house. You don't need to go outside. Our parents and parents today don't want you to go outside. It is scary outside. I get all that. And these comparisons are unfair. They are shaming people for growing up in the generation that they are growing up in. So this is what I'm saying. Patriarchy can be just as harmful to men as it is to women. So what do we do about it? We need to learn how to be partners to each other, men and women. You know, men have to stop thinking that they benefit from a traditional wife, that they want somebody who's going to do all the cooking and cleaning, but also contribute to the finances. That's not something that modern women are going to do. Modern women are not going to contribute 50% of the finances and do 80% of the work because it's unfair. Just like the meme comparison was unfair, that is unfair. And this is something that's lifelong, that's been ongoing forever and ever and ever. And women are not going to choose that. What we want is somebody who will be a true partner to us. So what men need to learn is there is more required from them than the 3 Ps. Provide, protect, and procreate. There's more than that. We need you to figure out who you are, what it is that you want, what type of person you want to be, and how to go about making sure that that happens. Because we can't do the emotional work for you. Because as of right now, everything that doesn't work out for you is blamed on a woman. That's the patriarchal way. Because a patriarchy is designed to make the life of men easier, more comfortable, and less blame. You know, how many times have the mothers of jerks been blamed for the fact that they raised a jerk? Well, look at who raised them. Yeah, it's not the mother's fault that somebody turns out to be a jerk. Maybe it's the jerk's fault. You know, this system is set up in a way that men are let off the hook constantly. And that's what we need you to understand. We need you to understand that it's not all our fault and to become a true partner to us. And if you're not willing to do that type of work, we're probably not going to want to spend the rest of our lives with you. And I'm sorry if that is a harsh truth, but that is indeed the truth. And that's why women are leaving. And that's why women are getting out of the dating pool. And that's why women are choosing to live happily single for life if necessary. And I think that most women are open to finding a partner if it's somebody that they think that they can share life with. But you have to stop expecting women to do all of the work and then explain it to you. You have to do more than the 3 Ps. You have to dig deeper. You have to be the one to figure out what it is you want in this life and how you go about getting it. You have to be the one to step up and take responsibility for the sins of your past. You have to be the one to call out injustices when you see it. You have to be the ones to tell the guys it's not cool to make every single woman sexual. Because you guys all have daughters, sisters, aunts, and you wouldn't want that for them. And it has to start somewhere. And this is what we need from you in order to be a true partner, to be the person that we want to share our lives with. And that requires work from you to do the internal work. And I know you've never been encouraged to do that. I know that. That's why this is a damaging, detrimental system for everyone. So, if you're accused of being a man-hater like I am, you are not. You are not a man-hater for wanting things to be better for women. You can speak up against systems that are wrong. The patriarchal system excuses every behavior that men does and blames it on women. Of course, women are not going to like that system. But it is detrimental to men in certain ways as well. As I mentioned before, it is definitely a system that benefits men more than women, but it is damaging to men as well. So I find it odd when people call me a man-hater because I'm happily married. Happily married. And there are many men that I care about. I don't blame each individual man for a patriarchal system. What I do hope that men will do is recognize how unfair that system is and speak out for more equality for women and become the men that women want to have in their lives rather than trying to move women backwards so that they can continue to just provide the 3 Ps and don't have to step up their own lives in order to be happy. So don't let someone convince you that because you're calling out a system that is wrong and unfair, that you are some sort of person for doing that. I don't hate men. I don't even blame men. But I do hate the system. And I will continue to speak out against the system as I encourage you to do when you feel that things are not fair. What a patriarchy does is it forces not just women, but men into roles they need to play, regardless of if that's how they truly feel inside. That's what this is all about. You cannot feel free, happy, and fulfilled until you embrace who you truly are. And you cannot embrace who you truly are if you are forced to live in a role that someone has decided for you, that you will be a wife and a mother. Maybe you don't want to be a wife and a mother. Well, where does that leave you? Oftentimes it leaves you out in the cold where nobody wants to be. So you put on this persona of wanting what every woman's supposed to want. I mean, we're taught this. Every woman wants to grow up, get married, and have children. That's what women want. That's what we've been told. As men have been told, you will grow up, you will get a job, you will get married, have children, and then provide for them. Maybe that's not what a man wants to do. Again, men usually get let off the hook a little easier than women do. You know, if men decide that they don't want to get married and have kids, they're a confirmed bachelor. Women are spinsters and old maids and all of those other wonderful names that they had for women who never got married. You're an outcast, that's for sure. But this system forces all of us into roles we don't necessarily want because we were told this is our goal. And that's what the generations after us are learning is there are other options. There's other ways to live your life. And now that we've discovered this, we need the men to catch up. We need the men to realize that we're not doing this to hurt them. We're doing this to help us. It's not a revenge thing. It's not a gotcha thing. It's just, I want to enjoy my life. And if you're going to add to misery, why would anyone stick around? So I encourage men to examine how patriarchy has worked for them and how it has forced them into this box, this role that they've been told they need to play, just like it is for us women. And think about all of the things you have suppressed in the past because it didn't fit that role. And start to embrace those parts of you, because those are the parts that make you you. Those are the parts that are going to make you happy. Those are the parts that make you uniquely you and make you happy, make you fulfilled, make you share your joy with others. And that's all any of us want. We want to live a happy life. We want to dream and progress And we want to do that with somebody who shares a common goal. And we can all have that, but we have to break free of these roles. We have to take off everything that has been expected of us to embrace who we truly are. And if you'd like to learn more about that, please feel free to check out my website, Hopefulist.com. Shoot me a message on any of my social media platforms. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I'm on TikTok. I'm on LinkedIn. You can find me either under The Hopefulist or Wendy McClure. Reach out. Let me know that you're looking to find more empowerment in your life, that you want to be empowered to be your true self. And we'll have a discussion about it. If anything today really resonated with you, I urge you to share this podcast with some people. If you have somebody in your life who is convinced that women feminists are just man-hating bees, share this podcast with them. If you haven't already, please go to the App Store, go to Apple Podcasts or Spotify, wherever you listen to the podcast. Leave me a review. It really helps to push the podcast out to other people who may enjoy this content. So I thank you for being here. I thank you for being open to doing this type of work. I want you to hang in there. This is going to work. I'm telling you. We will break down this patriarchal system. It's not going to be fun. It's not going to be easy, but it will be worth it. And it will be a much better life for everyone, not just women, for everyone. So thank you again. I appreciate you being here, and go be badass. Thank you for joining me in this conversation. Together, we are better. Please visit my website at hopefulist.com and remember to hit that subscribe or follow button.